Hey everybody, video here for you today. Got a good note from somebody up here in Massachusetts about a site that goes back about 10,000 years, good for my Ancient America series. But before I get started, I just want to say happy birthday to Ddendyl. She has been performing on my channel for about 4 years, good friend. I was hoping to see her sing tonight, but the new mask-wearing regulations has pushed back when the singers are going to return to the casino, so that's too bad, but happy birthday, Ddendyl. I wanted to say that. Let's go down to Massachusetts today. This is near Ipswich. This is called the Brook Reservoir. It's near the site here. It's right down here. Findings were done in the 1950s, and they kind of preserved this site. This is another one that was kind of going to be destroyed until people realized how important this was. But the settlement coming from 10,000 years ago was right down in this area and was spread out over a wide area. Maybe some of you live near here, but here is the site from overhead. I believe this was a mine back about 60 years ago. Here is the site plan, and they found the artifacts kind of in a circular formation. They think this came from a single occupation of this place, coming from 10 and 11,000 years ago. Here's one article I found. Here is excavation work going on here in the 1950s at the Brook Paleoindian site here. Here are some artifacts. It says stone points discovered at Brook on display at the Essex Peabody Museum in Salem. Here is a gravel and sand excavation at the end of Paradise Road. There's a little mining operation here. And I have talked about that at other sites. When they dug down, they found bones and artifacts. That's how the site was uncovered about 60 years ago. Here it says the gravel and sand excavation at the end of Paradise Road in Ipswich uncovered the oldest Paleo-Indian site in the Americas, known as the Brook site. It says a half mile behind that site in the early 1950s, a group of young amateur archaeologists, men, now known as the Brook Boys, discovered one of the largest Paleoindian sites in North America along the banks of the Brook and the Egypt River. It says over 6,000 artifacts were uncovered in a large circle about the size of 4 football fields. They are now on display. Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. It says the site was nearly 4 times larger than the next largest site in North America. 2 more discoveries were made in the late 1960s, but the site is now a gravel pit. Here are some of the original Brook boys doing an excavation here in the 1950s, William Eldridge and Joseph Vaccaro. Here's a pretty cool projectile point they pulled out of here. It says radiocarbon dating of Brook places the settlement at around 10 or 11,000 years ago, during or just after the cold Younger Dryas period. It says calcified remains of caribou and the constricted valley of the Eagle River suggests the location may have been ideal for a drive hunting of caribou. Here's a look at some projectile points. A and B are Clovis fluted points found at Brook. C is a Folsom fluted point from Wisconsin for comparison. Other tools from the Clovis found at Brook here. Blades, scrapers, drills, other things here found at Brook on the right. Here are some other projectile points, and these are the ones in the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. This website also has a video attached. Let's listen to just a minute of this.
We're here at the Robbins Museum, and this is the exhibit on Brook, and David DeMello, who's the museum director, is going to tell us about it. David, tell us about what is Brook?
Brook is a site that is on Brook in Ipswich. It is the oldest Native American site in Massachusetts. It dates from somewhere between 1050 and 11,000 years ago. It was excavated in the 50s by members of the MAS, a number of people, the Vaccaro brothers, William Eldridge, and Tony Orsini. And they were doing salvage archaeology because the site is in a quarry, and the quarry was being dismantled and used. And they got just ahead of the bulldozers. And one of the key things that they did, which was very unusual at that time period, is they plotted site-wise where they found the artifacts. In the past, that really hadn't been done much. And because they did that, they were able to determine that there were, I believe, 36 separate activity sites that were all active at the same time. Now, this is very unusual because the Paleo people, the first people who came after the Ice Age, were not thought to have gathered in large quantities. But this was certainly a large quantity. This is probably the second largest site, or one of the top sites in the country. And they know that all of the material was gathered from the same level, so that those 36 activity areas were probably active all at the same time.
Here's a local article I found from a few weeks ago. Archaeological Conservancy acquires portion of Brook 2, the 2-acre property containing a portion of the Brook 2 archaeological site is now permanently preserved. The Archaeological Conservancy is the only national nonprofit organization in the United States dedicated to the preservation of significant archaeological sites, and it was established in 1980. Here's a story from June 12th. The Archaeological Conservancy acquires a portion of the Brook 2 site in Massachusetts. The site was generously donated by Christopher Conley and Candace Christensen, and here are people working at the site this year. And the Brook 2 site is a portion of the Brook site that was not properly excavated and researched, and that's why they're doing work today on the site here. I will leave this link below, but here it has that display with the projectile points in it. Here's a look at a few others. Some of these go back maybe 11,000 years, but a pretty cool discovery made about 60 years ago here. This is a story I enjoyed looking into. The Archaeological Conservancy has preserved over 550 archaeological sites all across the country, from the earliest habitation sites all the way through to 19th century sites. Seems like guys about 60 years ago who really cared about history were pretty important to getting this site preserved, so proper research can be done here. And then it says Chris Conley inherited the property from his mother Mary, who was dedicated to the preservation of historic sites in the Ipswich area. Her efforts are recognized by the Mary P. Conley Preservation Award that is given out annually by the Ipswich Historical Commission for exemplary restoration and preservation projects. Because of Mary's dedication to preservation, Chris and Candace wanted to ensure that the 2-acre property containing a portion of the Brook 2 site will always be protected and available for archaeological research. To further help offset the cost of transferring and protecting the property, the Elfreda Frank Foundation has also kindly committed $15,000 to the Conservancy. This is the third site in Massachusetts that the Conservancy has been involved in protecting, but this was a pretty cool story to look into. 11,000 years ago, a pretty big settlement here in present-day New England. What do we really know about our past? But it seems right after the Younger Dryas period, sites were being occupied a few centuries later. Here's a look down on the ground at the area. 11,000 years ago, there was a large settlement of people here making projectile points, living in very ancient North America. But this is one of the earliest settlements that we have. Pretty cool story to do. Going back 11,000 years. I will leave a few links below. Hope you thought that was cool. Happy birthday, Ddendyl. You all have a very safe day.